Okay, we're live.
All right, thank you, Karen. All right, so I'll call to order tonight's meeting of the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority at 5:03. I'll start with our land acknowledgement, where we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to First Peoples for their care for, their teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. And with that, I guess we'll move right into our agenda. Can I get an approval of tonight's agenda? Mr. Taylor, Mr. Boyko, all in favor? Thank you. Anybody have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? If not, seeing none, we'll move on. No delegations. Can I get an approval of the meetings for minutes for the meeting held on March 16th? Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Boyko, all in favor? So approved. Thank you very much. Any business arising from those minutes from anyone? All right, seeing none. We'll move right into reports. So our first report tonight is 2023-028, the May 2022 storm damage update, contract reward, insurance claims, you name it. You got it, Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this file, just for a little bit of context, has been worked on by staff for many months in order to work through all the processes that our insurance company is looking for in terms of things. So with that, we had just recently heard that all of our documentation and everything that we were looking to claim was approved on April the 3rd. I'm going to give a little bit of a breakdown on the perhaps call it the math, if you will, in terms of things. So in 2022, Autonomy Conservation had already paid for $25,836 of expenses. Those expenses were mostly for the contract work that was done for the cleanup. That was an unbudgeted expense that we had in 2022. And it was really just the emergency work that was required at the time. There was a lot more damage that was done that we were not able to get at, and we didn't have the funds for that. The total insurance claim for the work that was done in 2022, and also future work, should the board approve the contract work, is for $125,836. Out of that, we have our deductible, which is $25,000. It's standard for conservation authorities, and so that is netted out. And so we roughly have about $100,000 now. We up to $100,000 to do future work, future cleanup work. Staff were able to, they tried very hard to secure many quotes. We were only able to secure one quote from Logan Tree Experts, who actually did the work back in May following the storm. And that quote is for $82,896.80. There is, so we really have, if you want, a delta of about $16,000 up to, again, that $100,000 policy claim. So staff are asking for board approval to award the contract work to Logan Tree Experts, and with an up to limit of $100,000, which is the policy limit. And that is just to ensure that when we are out on site and we are doing work, that and there is more things identified that we are unaware of right now, that they are able to go ahead and do that work. We also understand that our insurance company is able to provide a cash forward, so to help us cash flow this. They're able to give us an advance. So that is also a very helpful process for us. So this is our management's recommendations for the board to consider.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Jeanette. And I know you and staff put a lot of work into
Mm.
getting as far as we have, and there's still a few conservation authorities who have no idea how to achieve what you have achieved in this so far.
It's not a policy that is accessed, and yes, there was a lot of documentation and work that was required. So other conservation authorities who have just recently experienced some tree damage in the ice storms are now calling and asking for a little bit of guidance on how to navigate some of the processes.
And with that, Mr. Baldwin, you were first in line.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and through you to Jeanette. Jeanette, I'm assuming just because of this Derico, this wasn't a single sourced group with the Logan Tree Service. It sounds to me in reading the report that you tried to get others to do that. Is that typical of storms across the province that might happen? You'd have several people that you just couldn't get a hold of because they're doing things for private businesses, et cetera, et cetera. Could you give us a little more detail on that? Happy to move the report to Mr. Chair at the appropriate time, but I was just wondering if Jeanette could comment on that.
Go ahead, Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, staff actually did work very diligently contacting a number of contractors. And in part, that was also part of some of the delay here. We did need to prove to the insurance company that we did actually do our due diligence and trying to get more quote so that they understood that, yes, this was a valid quote. And we just had absolutely no luck. What we understand is that a lot of our contractors are actually in New Brunswick right now. So contractors in Ontario or in New Brunswick helping and still doing lots of work there. We also ourselves have been unable to find on a different file, but same work, unable to find any contractors to do our work in our managed forest and do our harvesting of our hardwood. And so in 2022, we had budgeted some revenue for that, and our forester was unable to secure anybody to do that work. And so we're still looking for contractors for that work in 2023. So yes, it has been very challenging to track down people, to get them to provide quotes and to secure them, because that's the other component, is that you might be able to get a quote, but you might not have that work done until 2025. So there's a long timeline to this.
Yeah, just something related there through the chair is that, when you drive along Highway 7 there on the way to Ottawa, there's still tremendous devastation in the Tweed area. I'm just wondering, some of those contractors that might typically work with the conservation authorities, if they're kind of focused on other areas that were really, really devastatingly hit. So
I can say that is the case, that we do know that there are some local contractors there. And the other challenge is that sometimes for provincially owned lands where they wanted to do the cleanup, they were able to bring in those resources quicker and than we were able to. And so their workload is just there for them.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem. All right, Ron? You're on mute.
Thought I'd taken that up. Yeah, a lot of the same questions that Director Baldwin had through you, Chair Cuntley. Yeah, I mean, it looks like the process here has been followed to a reasonable expectation given the situation. My question really was around policy, around tendering and those sorts of things. And I think Jeanette's answered those questions for me around the efforts that were brought forward to get somebody. Those types of services, I have a friend who is a retired hydro lineman who works for a private line company, and they chase these storms around because they get paid so much money that the dollars he tells me he makes for going down to Florida when they have a storm down there, or North Carolina, is shocking how much municipalities and utility services are paying these private companies to go. So yeah, I mean, I believe a lot of our local guys and gals that work in these businesses are jumping on those opportunities because the return's so much better. So I'd be happy to second Director Baldwin's recommendation of the report.
Thank you, Director Black. Adam, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Jeanette, for the detailed report there and the hard work that people have put into the office. I guess my question is, with respect to the insurance policy, is that only for the cleanup component of this, or kind of what are the costs associated with rebuilding and doing some tree planting kind of after the initial cleanup is finished?
So Mr. Chair, this is strictly cleanup work, and that is what the policy covers in terms of things. And so we would look to work with our partners and through our tree planting programs. We also would look to work with Trent University as well. So there would be restoration work that would follow this in terms of things, but that would be up to us to fund and navigate and manage.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Jeanette. And I guess the reason why I bring this up is Douro Dummer was impacted by the storm pretty significantly, and it actually came up at our last council meeting as well that we need to do some restoration work in our township, and how can we partner with Orca was the question.
Mr. Chair, we would be happy to, and I do know this also came up in when I was at the council as well. So if your staff want to send us an email describing what the project is, we are looking for some projects this year. So it's a good pitch. It's for that. So please let us know, and we will try our best to make sure that we do some planting in the municipality. This work would not, the restoration work would not occur until future years out. This work will take the rest of this year, if the board approves, the balance of this year to actually do. There's a lot of cleanup work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, I see your hand go up. Are you bringing out your chainsaw?
I can. Yeah, I was hoping somebody else would ask this first, but it appears I may be the only one who's confused by the facts. And I'm just trying to get this sorted out, Jeanette. Is the amount of our claim $100,000 to the insurance company, and then that is subject to a $25,000 deductible? So in other words, the pay would be 75 grand, or is the amount of our claim 100 grand, and we're being credited for the 25 we've already spent as our deductible?
Through Chair Huntley, excellent question in terms of things. So it would be the later. So we are being credited for already having spent $25,836. So we can spend an additional up to $100,000.
I think you're on mute, Joe. Are you good? Okay. So I think the net of it is that the Conservation Authority will be out of pocket just the deductible of $25,000, which is the equivalent to what we already spent last year on the cleanup.
Correct.
Okay. All right. With that, any other questions? Sure, Mr. Ashmore.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. To Jeanette, through you to Jeanette, the $25,000 deductible, you mentioned that was standard throughout the Conservation Authority. That I didn't know that was so high. That's what everybody is subject to, the 25%, or not 25%. Is there a percentage, or is it just based on the claim of what the what the deductible is for the municipality involved?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the $25,000 deductible is a standard deductible for Conservation Authority. So we participate as a collective and have the same insurance, have opportunities for the same insurance company or the same coverage across all 36 Conservation Authority. So we're part of that collective. And in fact, we actually have staff who are longstanding members of a committee of Conservation Ontario on that. So that $25,000 is a standard deductible, and Autonomy Conservation has actually recognized that, let's call it a liability, and has accrued that over many years in case the event comes that we had to pay that $25,000 to actually access an insurance claim. Again, this is a very unique situation. It's not a sort of the standard type of insurance claim that conservation authorities access. You would think we would, but we haven't in the past. We've, it's more like, automobiles or break-ins or those sorts of things, right? That might be claims. And so working through this process, we actually understood that we don't have to give them cash to actually access the claim. They'll just net it out from the overall expense.
Okay, thanks for that. I just found that kind of high. Like I guess that applies for like Ganaraska or Kawartha Conservation or Simcoe. It doesn't matter what size of.
That's correct.
Because
that's correct.
I know with farm policies, like they're usually 1,000 to 5,000 deductible, but it seemed really high. But I don't know, maybe is it a higher risk or is it?
No, and in this case, we are accessing. So this report speaks to one policy that we're accessing, but there have been, in connection to the damage that was done, and the way that the insurance company has assisted us. They're accessing a few other policies as well that we have in order to, for example, claim the $25,836. So,
Okay.
yeah. And I see Director Wilford has been able to join us here.
Thanks.
He had some connectivity issues, Mr. Chair.
No problem. All right. Any further questions? All right. Director Baldwin and Director Black, you good to move in second? Excellent. All in favor? So moved. There you go. Go spend some money. All right, next report is 2023-029, the 2023 Autonomy Conservation Board meetings schedule. So this was, kind of come about from a few discussions we've had over the last couple of months. So Jeanette's been kind enough to bring this back to us so we can make some decisions. So go ahead, Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what was discussed informally with the board members was looking to have 3 to 4 in-person meetings in the year, and then also coming back together again for our annual general members meeting. So that's separate from this report. Of course, we will do that. But so this is a proposal that staff have in terms of what meetings they might be. I can share that those would be meetings where there would be more substantive items, some policy work that we're working on, directives from the ministry. So they would be great meetings to have in person alongside coordinating with our SPA meetings in terms of them remaining virtual. And so that's the recommendations and some possible locations. I have had some really good discussions with all of these possible locations, and Hiawatha First Nations is actually holding that date should the board approve wanting to have a meeting there. That was one of the suggestions and conversations that directors had alongside some of the other locations as well later in the fall. So this is up for the board's discussion. It's your meetings. Staff are happy to implement any wishes and things that the board would like to see. And I also know, I'm just add that there was some discussion around 4 o'clock start. Again, those are up for the board to determine what you would like to do for your board meetings.
Excellent. Thank you. And Mr. Baldwin, you're first in line yet again.
Mr. Chair, I always try and get the tough questions out of the way first, so things move along quickly. Thanks for the report, Jeanette. I'm just wondering, what I see, I'm okay with the 4 o'clock if that's the will of the group. So if it's an earlier start that may allow your staff to get out of the building or get out of the meeting earlier than extending their workday, I'm okay with that. What I see missing from the possible locations is the Orca headquarters itself. We used to meet in the boardroom at Orca. I'm just wondering, I don't see it there, and there must be a reason why it's not mentioned there. So I just bring that to it's a question I have. The locations are all great, but we're missing our own boardroom. So would you be able to speak to that, Jeanette, why that's missing or not recommended? Thank you.
Thank you.
Answer, but go ahead, Jeanette.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in 2022, when there was a desire to bring staff back into the office from working remotely in 2020 and 2021, there was some reconfigurations. So the board meeting as you would know it, the board meeting room as you would know it, no longer really exists. It actually is cubicles that staff are using now. We do have one room upstairs, and that room is a bit tight for everybody to actually get into in terms of things. I have been talking a lot, very extensively with staff around, can we actually get in this room and how would that work and that sort of thing. So the room is quite small. It actually used to be staff offices, and now it really is enough for, maybe 10 people if the most. You certainly wouldn't be able to have the members of the public, and that is one component, right? Is that we need to advertise and at least be able to let people know if they chose to come and listen to the debate discussions. It needs to be publicly accessed. So the meeting room that we do have would not serve that purpose. So we don't have any space to actually bring the board together at the administration office. And the same would apply. I don't have enough room to bring my staff together to actually have a staff meeting in that here as well.
All right, thank you. That makes perfect sense, Jeanette. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
No problem. Director Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jeanette. I support the recommendations. I support the 4 o'clock start. The Memorial Center, where do we meet in the Memorial Center?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there was a suggestion perhaps that the board might be interested in having their board meeting. There is a room there that is accessible, and that it might tie closely to a hockey game.
Right.
And so the board meeting would be before that and be able to do that. I actually had a conversation today to confirm some logistics with the Peterborough Petes, and so they actually would be happy to assist us should the board wish to have a meeting there. Make it accessible to the public, and then for some those who wish to participate in watching the game.
I think that's a great idea. I think that maybe some of the other board members might decide to purchase a ticket and stay and watch a Pete's game. Maybe the Pete's would allow our board chair to drop the puck. They have some fun with it. I certainly would expect, Jeanette, that for these in-person meetings that staff and the chair use their discretion to make sure that it's there's enough material to make it worthwhile. I mean, obviously, I don't think a meeting that's going to potentially last less than an hour is likely worthy of in-person. It'll take folks longer to drive to it and home than will be to sit in the meeting. But provided that the meeting warrants in person, there's enough material to go through, I certainly support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Taylor. Maybe we'll make sure we put on debating the Commonwealth on the next one. Over to you, Adam. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you again, Jeanette and staff for putting that together. Watching the Peats seems like it would be a more fruitful venture as opposed to watching the Leafs these days. So with that, I would like to make a motion to accept the recommendation as presented and move the meetings to 4 o'clock.
So accept the report as recommended then.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I have a seconder. Mr. Ashmore, thank you. So before we go to vote, like this is a tentative schedule that Jeanette's put together. So if there's anybody who wants to, you know, if there's a reason to shift which ones we're in person or virtual, then you know that's part of why it was brought forward. But if we just want to accept it as it is, that's perfectly fine too. So any discussion before I call a vote? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Ashmore.
Just to want to clarify, so if you for some reason had to zoom in, you still have that option?
Unfortunately not. Like that'll be the issue, right? Like when we do these, I mean, Hiawatha might be able to accommodate it, but it would be very difficult to accommodate it at any of the others.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, I can clarify that part of the discussion was to try and find hybrid locations.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was unsuccessful. I know that they're out there, but it's about whether the host location wanted to be able to allow us to use their hybrid system.
Exactly. And Mr. Black, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Chair, as well. Am I on? Yeah, I'm good. Okay. That was my question too around the hybrid, because the June 15th meeting I'll be out of country, but probably could join virtually. But and I'm sorry I'm going to miss the meeting in Hiawatha. But we're going there as the health unit, and we've been promised food as well when we go with the health unit. I don't know what's wrong with this board, but we get a meal with the health unit. So, but I'm sorry you're going to miss that. But if it's possibly virtual, then I may be able to join virtually.
Okay. All right. So motion's on the table, and going to call all in favor. All right. Thank you. So moved.
So I am going to clarify, Mr. Chair, if I may now. So it is a 4 o'clock start?
Yes, 4 o'clock was included.
Yes, thank you. Okay, great. And I also will clarify that for the in-person meetings, there will be food yes. And as part of the policies of autonomy conservation, there is food, and there also, we would, if you chose to put your mileage claims in, we would also do that as well. There is money in the budget for that.
All right. Thank you. So we look forward to seeing everybody on June 15th that we can. All right, our next report is 2023-030, the Hope Mill lease. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report and attached draft agreement is in front of you for looking for approval. It currently has the lease has ended March the 31st of this year. There was just questions in the past with the past board and the former CIO ensuring that if there is an agreement that is 5 years, that the board has the authority to enter into any lease agreement for 5 years and under. If it's more than 5 years, it requires the minister's approval for us to enter into that lease agreement. So that's why the agreement says 5 years, and it does not have a renewal clause. It has to come back in front of you in order to meet the legislation in terms of things. I did circulate this draft to the Friends of Hope Mill, and they were happy with, they had no edits, and they were prepared to sign it right there and then. So it's in front of the board for approval.
So go ahead, Director Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jeanette. I guess just a bit more background info for some of the board members. Hope Mill is located in Otonabee, South Monaghan Township. I know the facility reasonably well. If every Tuesday the volunteers start the mill up and mill some lumber, and they give demonstrations. If you are looking for something to do on Tuesday, on any Tuesday, go down there in the morning. It is one of the most dedicated, capable, experienced, interesting group of volunteers you'll ever meet. It's a real win-win. This is great for the Conservation Authority. It's great for the mill. They've restored it. There's some men there that are retired engineers. They're able to figure out how these old machines work and then make the parts to bring them back to life. It's just a wonderful facility. They do a great job with it. They also, I'll put in a bit of shameless plug here, they also sell a lot of things from there. They'll sell lumber at a lot lower price than your hardware store, your lumber store. They make things, they make picnic tables, that sort of stuff, and they're all on display there. You can order them. So it's really a great, it's just a wonderful story. I'm glad that they're interested in renewing the lease for 5 years. And I can't think of any reason why we wouldn't want to do it. Thank you.
Very good points, Joe. Any other questions or comments? No? And you're right. They are a fantastic group of individuals running that mill. So it's great that we can enter this lease and know it. Do you want to move this report then, Joe? Thank you. I guess seconder. All right, Mike. All in favor? So moved. Thank you. All right, the next report is 2023-031, 2022 annual report. I believe Karen's going to run us through this one. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Huntley. And I'm pleased to present to the board the 2022 annual report to the watershed community. It provides a summary of our accomplishments for the past year. Some of those highlights include another successful year for planning and permitting inquiries and permit applications with 1,118 inquiries, 370 permits issued, and 99% of those within the required timeline standards. We issued 14 flood messages and met with the water response team 3 times, but did not issue any low water messages. We completed and released floodplain mapping for Mead, Curtis, Jackson, and Baxter Creeks, the Lakesfield tributaries, North and South Kawartha Lakes, and the Ouse River. Our second major fundraising campaign, Close the Gap, was launched, and together with the funds raised through the Your Meters Matter campaign, we raised over $33,000 worth of donations for the Jackson Creek Trail revitalization. The Jackson Creek Trail revitalization project wrapped up after 3 years of community fundraising, and along with funding from FedDev Canada, Community Revitalization Fund, and TransCanada Trail, we resurfaced 4,000 meters of trail. We added culverts to remedy long-term issues along the trail with erosion. We replaced the railings on 3 bridges, and we were able to develop and install 10 new accessible wayfinding signs and 8 interpretive signs, 4 of which we partnered with Curve Lake First Nation Cultural Center to include Ojibwe names of birds, trees, turtles, and other species. In total last year, we saw an 80% increase in donations, including a land donation from the Stewart family in the township of Otonabee South Monaghan. 30 acres of land was donated adjacent to the pre-existing Stewart's Woods Conservation Area, which was donated by the Stewart family in 1969. Page 8 of the annual report features this story about the legacy that the Stewart family has created now that the Stewart's Woods has grown to over 100 acres. We hosted 18,420 day use visitors at Wartha Caves Conservation Area last year, which is a 97% increase in comparison with 2021. We published our first climate change report card to measure the first year of our climate change strategy implementation. And we planted 29,705 trees, over 1,000 shrubs, and 256 wildflowers at 14 locations across the watershed. Additionally, 14,000 trees were purchased by residents through our tree seedling sales program, These are some of the great highlights from 2022, and I'm happy to bring them to you today in the annual report. Again, this year, the annual report was designed for optimal viewing online, and we may print copies if there is a need. The report will be distributed electronically to the municipalities, CAOs, Conservation Ontario, and to our fellow conservation authorities. It will be posted on our website and will be distributed through social media and through our e-newsletter. Thank you. And through the chair, I would be happy to answer any questions.
No, thank you, Karen. And once again, the report does look fabulous, and it's great for people to read through and get all of those facts that you've spewed off at their fingertips. It's a great report, great layout yet again. Thank you. Any questions to Karen or about the report? None? Oh, and Mr. Metcalf.
Thank you, Chair Hundley. Again, yeah, I would just like to reiterate your comments that it's a great document. It's 10 pages. It's a snapshot of everything that happened throughout the year. It's easy to read for the community to look at it and pick out all that information that's on there. It's just packed full of facts and content. So really great layout. And again, to send it out to the community and to our municipalities, it's really easy to pull off some of that information. So again, great job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Any comments, questions? Nope. You want to move that then, Mike? Thank you. Mr. Baldwin. Oh, sorry, Adam, you moving it or you got a question?
I was just, through you, Mr. Chair, just going to say thank you again. Fantastic work. And I'd like to second that motion.
Excellent. All right, got a seconder on the table. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor of? So moved. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Karen. All right, the next report is 2023-032, first quarter financial and activity reports. So back to you, Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is, again, our quarterly report. So these reports represent from January the 1st to March 31st of this year. Just to go through, so with our financial report, again, everything is on track. There's nothing that of a concern. There wasn't a lot of spending, obviously, in terms of it being the first year. You will notice in the financial report as well that in the capital side, you will see that we have a number of things that have been completed, but again, it's the first quarter, so other things that need to be finished throughout the year. Specifically, I'm referencing as well the FedDev projects are listed there, so you'll see the expenses, but also the revenues, which is in part of that FedDev grant. We will bring forward a closeout report. I'm targeting May, but it might be June, but closeout report of all of our FedDev projects and giving a final counting for the board on those projects. With respect to our permits, everything is in line. You can see that, again, we're meeting those timelines. The Conservation Ontario timelines, but also the provincial timelines. There's nothing of concern there. Happy to answer questions, but nothing to concern to highlight at this point. And alongside is our performance objectives. So I do know that we will be working through our website process to have a dashboard perspective of this. But so for right now, it is in the same Excel format. There are a number of objectives that we have already started. Again, January 1st to March 31st, and things like the campgrounds. Now that it's April, we're actually working on those and getting those opened for May in terms of things. Again, nothing, Mr. Chair, that I have any concerns that we're off track on, and there's a number of things, in fact, that we're exceeding our timelines on.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Jeanette. Director Boyko.
Thank you for your report, Jeanette, and thank you for responding to my email the other day about the Lakefield campground. There are a number of others. May 1st, the Lakefield campground is opening for the first time under Orca's management. A number of those people who own the trailers are already moving in and doing some work, which has been noticed by local residents. You may recall this was quite controversial in Lakefield. And I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that it divided the community. So perhaps, Jeanette, my question, perhaps you could let us all know about the personnel who are going to be involved, and what kind of prep work is being done for that May 1st. Is everything going well? Is there any way that the township parks department or township staff or can support the folks involved in opening that campground and dealing with some of the things that I know they're going to be dealing with?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, all of our campgrounds, so Beavermead and Warsaw and Lakefield, will officially open on May the 15th. With respect to Lakefield, we do have in our operating agreement that Orca is responsible for opening the park by May the 1st and ensuring that the public washrooms and things are opened and ready. So staff are busy working at all of our campgrounds and in particular Lakefield, because they're of the transition and it's a new facility to us. So we have had a number of meetings with the township staff. Would like to give them a bit of a shout out because they have been also very helpful in answering some of those detailed questions, ensuring that we have our utilities set up, ensuring that we have the gatehouse set up. We're, again, meeting all of our obligations under that operating agreement that we have. There's been an extensive amount of communications with the Lakefield campground campers, the seasonal campers, so that they understand the transition from the former operator to us, understanding that some of the rules and regulations that we have in place, that in fact we are looking to enforce those and have them in place, whereas in the past they might not have been enforced. So a lot of communications. I have also been very much involved, so I'm very intimately understanding what's going on there. We have been hiring. It's noted in my CAO activity report. We've been hiring for all of our positions, so not just our campgrounds, but our conservation lands as well. And so we are very happy to be able to share a very seasoned employee here at Orca who has managed Beavermead campground for 11 plus years. And he has taken on the challenge of ensuring that Lakefield is up and going, and there's a smooth transition. So I'm very pleased with our employee, Mr. Bruce Fleming, who was part of our annual service awards, if you might remember. So, at this point, I have no concerns. Staff have been great. Your staff have been great. And we continue to answer questions, problem solve, and prepare for camping season at all three of our campgrounds.
If I could, Mr. Chair, thank you through you. Thank you so much for all of the work that you've been doing. The docs are coming in, they're ordered, and they'll be in a couple of weeks or into May. And Bruce Fleming, thank you for that name, because I know that I'm going to start getting calls, and I know that we being Orca are going to be doing a great job in enforcing rules that aren't new. They're just the first time that they're going to be enforced for a long time. So thank you very much for all of your work.
You're welcome. And I will also note that our manager of conservation lands, Jesse James, is also a point of contact and overall responsible for our campgrounds and conservation lands.
I look forward to telling people that if they have some questions, they can talk to Jesse James. That's going to be great.
Hey, thank you. Director Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jeanette. In this list here in the report of capital projects, you referenced the Haroldtown Conservation Authority. That was one of our FedDev projects that was supposed to be finished by March 31st, I believe. And I think as you know, as we've discussed in the past, that while that work was ongoing, it was creating some parking issues on Old Norwood Road that was a concern. So my question is the project finished? And do staff monitor that from time to time to make sure that the users of the Harold Towns area are parking on site in the parking lot as they should, and not necessarily on the road when it isn't necessary?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so certainly all three of our FedDev projects, so our washroom constructions at Selwyn, Squirrel Creek, and Haroldtown, they have been given an extension by FedDev to into the summer. And it was actually very common. It came very late. I had to rush out to see Mr. Chair to get all of our amending agreements signed. And in part because of the weather. And so there are some things in the washroom that we're not able to complete. Our contractor is not able to complete because the temperatures were too cold and they wouldn't be able to do it appropriately. And so that work, now that we have more warmer weather, they're actually out there still. You'll still see our contractor out there completing that work. So we're still with the approval of FedDev have extended the timelines. We'll be able to get these washrooms prepared and opened. We're looking to do that again by May the 15th at the very latest in terms of things. And so, yes, we do, now that we are into this season of our work, we will have our conservation lands staff out there monitoring our areas, monitoring our properties, doing the checks, ensuring that, people are parking in the parking lot. Now that it's the nice weather and there's more people out there. So it is a large parking lot. We are going to be doing some work, Director Taylor, on the berm and reconfiguration the berm a bit and doing some planting. You'll see that activity happening in June out there as well. So so we're on time and we'll have them opened, and yes, we are out monitoring our properties.
So just to be clear, is the parking lot reconstruction finished yet, Jeanette, or no?
Correct. It is complete.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And I was out there visiting on the trails and things on Easter weekend, and there was a lot of activity as well there. So yes, people
Thank
are
you.
using the parking lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right, seeing none, can I get a mover? Mr. Black and Mr. Revert. Adam. All in favor? All right, thank you. So moved. All right, so moving on to reports for information. Report 2023-033 CAO monthly report, even though I think you just gave half of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it has been a busy month since I last reported to the board, but it's been wonderfully busy. I'm very thankful for reporting out. So I've spent some time with our flood forecasting staff and understanding our processes there, updating some of our communication protocols, our dam management, and obviously you and I both attended Conservation Ontario Council meeting, and it was the first in-person meeting in many years. And so that was also a good opportunity. I also had the opportunity to participate on the Trent Conservation Coalition Source Protection. It's a little bit related to our meetings earlier today, and with Chair Hunt there around some interviews for a vacancy. So that was another good opportunity, and staff we're in the hiring process. Is almost finished, so getting those people in place. Now that it's a warm weather. So it's been a great, a good busy month. Actually, I should mention as well, Director Black and I both participated yesterday in a webinar of Conservation Ontario and AMO, and it was also a good informative process. So
Nice. All right. Any questions about the activity report? All right, seeing none, can I get a receiver? Gary? And Ron Ashmore, thank you. All in favor? So received. Media and correspondence. Anybody want to bring anything forward? Nope. All right, I received the media and correspondence coverage. Get Mover. Pat, you good? Ron? Thank you. All in favor? So received. Who's open forum? Anybody have anything left to discuss? We covered a lot of topics today. All right, seeing none, there's no closed session, no reports. So future meetings, obviously we talked about what our future meetings look like. Our next one is May 18th. Conservation Ontario has one. Other than that, I'm looking for an adjournment. Pat and John, all in favor? So adjourned. Thank you, everybody.